Have you ever wanted to be able to send someone a link into your Power App that would open them up to the screen and the record, the exact place that you wanted them, right? So we call that deep linking. So in today's video, we're going to walk through how to set up deep linking in your Power Apps. We're going to take an existing Power App that's got a gallery and a form. We're going to have to reconfigure it a little bit to accept deep linking, and then we'll go make the configuration changes. And at the end, we'll kind of talk a little bit about some of the other ways you could use these deep links. Now, this is all based off of a video that I made like 4 years ago that has like 100,000 views. So hopefully I do as good of a job this time. Let's switch over to my desktop, take a look. Okay, so first things first, let's just check out my beautiful app. Well, beautiful app until I put the big green button over here, but you know, close enough, right? So all I really did with my HR Pro system here, if you hit start, it shows you a list of different employees. And then you can go in here and choose, let's choose Chewy. And then we've got a form here. We can edit the data, manipulate it, and save it, right? So pretty typical format, right? Like a gallery connected to a form. And so now what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to say, hey, when I go in here and look at Greg's record, we want to add an icon over here that sends an email to whoever we say. And when they get the link in the email, it takes them not only to our Power App, but will actually bring them back to Greg's screen right here, right? So that's what we want to build. Now, before we build that, I just want to kind of point out that we need to kind of fix things a little bit here, right? I built this the way is most typical, what we see the most. And like if we look at this form, you're going to see that the item property is currently set to gallery1.selected, right? If we go over here, as you can imagine, this is gallery 1. So whatever record you clicked on over here, that's the record that is showing up over here in our form because we're using gallery.selected. So this is the first thing we need to change in order to do deep linking. And honestly, gallery.select is something we don't really recommend ever. So what you're gonna do is you go over here to gallery. And so right now, this is the button that takes us to the other screen. And we're gonna add a second thing here. We're gonna say, I want to do set VarRecord to be this item. And then we'll put a semicolon at the end. And so what that's going to do is that's going to create a variable called VarRecord. By using set, it's a global variable. It means it's available anywhere in our app. And we're going to just take the entire record, the entire row of information, and put it in that variable. So that's all we did, right? One change there. But now if we hit play, right, if we click here, right, the form still works the way it did. But now what we want to do with the form is instead of gallery.selected, right, that's a record. And that's Nicola's record, right? That's why we see all of Nicola's data. All we're going to do is we're going to change this to be VarRecord. And because it is a record from the same data source, the employee's Dataverse table, then boom, right? Like the dots are connected. So now the app works exactly the same way. The only difference is instead of what you selected in the gallery driving what shows up in the form, it is going to be this VarRecord. And so this is a concept, like I can have a whole video on it. I'll put a link up there like that talks about the importance of VarRecord and the cool things you can do as you start to use it. But as you get more advanced in Power Apps, you start using a gallery.selected less and less because you can't control it. We need to be able to control this, right? So when we do the deep link, we need to be able to set the VarRecord. So when they click on Greg's picture, it brings them over here. But we can't do that until we update this, okay? But yeah, so now if we hit play, we go back. All right, speaking of Greg, let's click on Greg's record. There's his ugly face again, right? Back, click on me. There's my beautiful face, right? So it works the same, but that's the first key change is you have to make it so you can control what data is being used. And this deep linking doesn't have to be done with forms only. So if you're using Patch, right, whatever methodology you're using to populate this, you just need it to be variable driven so that way you can change the variable with your deep link. So now what we want to do is we want to add a icon over here to do this, okay? So what I did here is this is actually a container. Let's kind of collapse these. I did a vertical container. And so when I add something new, it just pops over here, right? So if I say insert, we'll search for send. We put that in there and look, it just drops in there. The gallery respaces itself. All of that is configured automatically based on the settings of the container, right? Because you can't move things inside a container individually. If you want to change them, you have to click on the container and change its behavior altogether, right? Okay. So that's in there, but now the great thing is, and notice here, I had a little fun with my container. We're not gonna get into how I did it, right? But if you say edit, like the icons change, but these two icons always stay the same. If we cancel, boom, right? It's always kind of moving back and forth. We're manipulating that on the fly, giving a little bit more of a dynamic experience to our users. And if you're interested in this app, right, you can download this whole working app with the deep link and everything, the Dataverse tables, all of it as a solution. You just go over to training.powerapps911.com and sign up for the YouTube library. All of my app downloads are available over there. Right? Also, a lot of great training classes you should probably check out. Anyway, back to this. So now we've got this. Now we want to be able to send them a link to this app. Okay, so to be able to send an email with a link, right, we're gonna go here to data, we're gonna add data, and we're gonna search for Outlook. After several seconds, it finishes loading, and I can click on Office 365 Outlook and choose one of my connections. They're all the same, doesn't matter. Okay, so that adds Outlook into here. And so now on select, we want to be able to send the user a link to this app. Now, in order to do that, what we're going to need to know is the URL of the app. So make sure you've saved the app at least once. So we'll hit save just to be sure. And now if we just jump back over here, we're going to open a new tab and go back to the Power App Studio. And now there's our app. We're going to hit the ellipses here and we're going to say, I want the details. Here are the details. You have the web link. This is what you were looking for, right? So copy this. This is the same URL that you've been sharing with people forever. So we know we're going to put that in the email. Okay, so to write an email, we're going to do Office 365 Outlook.send email v2. And for right now, we're just going to send it to the logged in user, which is me. So we'll do user.email. We'll do a comma here. Subject will be like deep link. And then for the body, all we're going to do right now is just send the link. But remember that the body can be HTML. So we're going to put a little HTML in here. We're going to say A and then href equals single quote, paste in that crazy URL, close your single quote, close your bracket. Let's make this bigger so it's easier to see. And then now we need to say, okay, inside the A, we're going to say click here, and then we're going to close the A. Okay. So if you're familiar with HTML, that's pretty straightforward. If you're not, it's okay. Right? Remember, ChatGPT can help you, W3 Schools, if you're having a hard time with the HTML, but you can just copy and paste exactly what's there. Other than your URL will be different than mine, but that should take you there. That looks good. We'll go right here. We'll close our function. Everything looks happy. Now this isn't connected. This isn't going to take them straight to any specific record, but this should generate an email. And we like to fail fast, so we want to test this. So we're just going to hit play and we're going to click on this. And then now I'm going to switch over to my email real quick. And there's our email. And you can see here, it's, says deep link. There's a subject. It's from me. I'm the one that pressed the button. It's to me because I was one in the app. And then if we say click here, this is going to open up a new browser tab and it's going to take us to the home screen. Okay. So that's step one. Make sure that you can send an email that opens up the app. It's not our end goal, but that's the first step. Okay, so let's close all this so we don't get confused by it in a minute. So now that we've got that working, now what we need to do is we need to go back to this and we're going to need to add a parameter to this, right? So a parameter is just an additional part of the URL that things like PowerApps knows how to look up there, and we're going to send it an employee ID. It's going to find employee ID up there in the URL and then make that available to the app. So for right now, we're going to hard code that. And what we need to know before we even try to hard code this is we're going to edit our form real quick, edit fields, and we're going to add the ID here. Okay. Now, because I use Dataverse, right? So in this case, it's going to be the field that matches your naming here. So here you can see like employees video. So when I originally named this table, I called it employees video. Now it's called employees Dataverse, which changed. But if you hover, look to the right there, you see it's CR662_employees video ID. That little last piece, that's what's telling me that, hey, this is the ID field that we're looking for. So we're going to add this. Now, when you add this to your form, you're going to see that it is not editable, right? Because this is the primary key. If you're using SharePoint, it would have been the ID column. If it was SQL, it would have been whatever ID column you generated. But typically, Dataverse is a little more complicated because it's a big long number, whereas SharePoint would have just been the ID column. Either way, that's what I want. So we're going to try to create a deep link to me. So I'm going to grab this and copy it, right? Making it a little harder on myself by using Dataverse. And so now we're going to go up here to our URL. Now you see, and source time equals blah, 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 right? Like that right there is a parameter that PowerApps added. We didn't do that, but it's there. So we just kind of have to replicate that same thing. So we're going to say ampersand, right? We want to add another one. We're going to call it EMPID. You can call it whatever you want. Like make it say Cal or Buddy or Shane is awesome. Man, probably not Shane is awesome, but you can put whatever you want up there. I'm just using EMPID because that kind of matches what we're doing. And then we're going to do an equal, and then we're going to paste in that hot garbage that we just copied, right? That's called a GUID, but that is there. And so now that we've got that in the URL, we can now send the email. It's going to have this in the URL, and it's not going to affect PowerApps yet, but we're now passing a parameter. Because we're passing a parameter, if we want to get that parameter out Now we need to go back over here to the app, right? So the app object over here on the left, and we're going to go up here and say, hey, you have an OnStart property, right? OnStart is stuff that happens when this app loads before the rest of the things happen, right? So this happens before anything else happens for your app, which can delay loading. But in this case, we want to delay loading because we want to know, we want to grab this out before anything else happens. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say set, and we're going to say var emp ID, right? Same thing, keeps it easy for us, comma. We're going to use the param function. And then we're going to say, hey, param function, I want you to look for emp ID up in the URL. All right, so whatever you're put up there, right? So if you typed cow or you typed Shane is dork, then whatever you put up there, that's what you need to do, right? But now that's there. So now that I've got that there, we're going to have a new variable of this in here. We're going to copy. We're going to go back to the welcome screen. We're going to throw a label on here. Goodness gracious, if you ever take training classes with me, I love labels, right? They're a great way to prove things. And so all I want to do now is see, oh, let's make that bigger though, because we know that thing's giant. I'll say scroll just in case you need to get real big. But we want to see, does that crazy GUID show up here now when we do the app? Now, you're thinking, before I do this, I need to save. Yes, but you also need to publish, right? We need to make sure that we've published. And so before I do that, the other thing I'm going to do to help myself, I'm going to throw another label down and just leave it up here. And we're just going to put this one and call it V1. Okay, so the idea there is that when I see V1, I know I'm on the version of the app that we've done. Okay, so let's hit publish this version. Now, if I was you, I would probably wait 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. I'm going to try to go fast because I don't have patience, but you should wait so you don't have to troubleshoot too long, right? But all we're going to do now is we're going to hit play. We're going to dive in here, and we know that we're sending mine, right? So that 9 blah, blah, blah. So we're going to click on this button. Okay, so that should generate email. So let me switch my email real quick. Okay, so there's the email. Now, if we hover before we do anything, right? Look in there. You see that I see ampersand source time, blah, 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 and EMP ID, and I see the blah, blah, blah. That's probably what I want. So we're going to click on it. It's going to open a new app. Now, notice right away, the V1 is not here. So don't be upset that it's not working, right? V1's not there. So this is the old version of the app, and PowerApps is actually smart enough now to tell us it used to not be. But that's okay. So we haven't messed up yet. So let's hit refresh. It's now, once the Outlook connector, whatever, allow. One of my students was complaining this week. They're seeing that allow message a lot more. But look, there's the V1. And more importantly, there's our GUID. Yes, right? We have passed information via an email and gotten it back into the Power App. So now that we've got the information, now let's figure out how to action on it. So let's close this window again, right? And I keep closing these because I don't want to accidentally open the wrong one and get confused. And I keep telling you all these little things because I've, like I said, the other video had 100,000 views and probably had over 1,000 comments. And a lot of times when people struggled, they went too fast, they skipped steps, they didn't just take their time, right? So that's why we're trying to take our time as we go through this. Okay, so now what I want to do is twofold, right? Now let's just do onefold. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go back here to the app. Okay, so that is now getting our employee ID. So now that we have it, we want to do something with it, right? We want to set VarRecord to be that, and then we want to take them to the screen so they see my beautiful face. Okay, so we're going to do something like this. We're going to say if not is blank var employee ID, right? So that tells me that an employee ID came back. So if it's not blank, what do I want to do? I want to look up, actually I want to set VarRecord. Let's move my cursor out of the way. And I want to do a lookup to our data source, right? So in our case, employees Dataverse, but whatever yours is called. And I want to look up where the employees videos, right? So whatever that fancy column was, it was your primary key. And remember, it's going to be different for all of us, but for me, it was employee video, right? That was the name of the primary key, equals var emp ID. Now, if I close that and close that and close that, we should be able to do it now. Oh, we got an error, right? Now go hover. GUID values can only be compared to other GUID values. Okay, so we passed it a GUID, right? But we passed it when we did that set var employee ID, it turned it into a string. Strings are not GUIDs, even though they are. So what we need to do is we need to go back up here And we're going to say, hey, we want to use the GUID function around you to turn that string GUID into a GUID. By turning it into a GUID, we're going to get this, right? If you were doing this on SharePoint, what would you be passing? You would have passed a number, right? ID is a number, so you would have passed 12. You would have been reading 12 into var employee ID as a string 1, 2, not the number 12. So you would have used value here, right? And then down here, it would have been lookup SharePoint table ID equals var employee ID. But instead of GUID, that one would be value. If you did SQL Server, I don't know what you did. You probably did a number. It's probably like SharePoint, but that's on you, okay? So this should set VarRecord to be what we want. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back over here to the home screen. And so we know that this label worked, right? But I'm actually going to leave it here. And I like to leave these here because I want to prove all this. We'll delete all this later, right? Copy, paste. We're going to put this one right here. I'm going to say, hey, I want you to be VarRecord. And then we're just going to do like first name, right? So if we see Shane, then we know we're in good shape. Look at that, it's already there. Okay, we're going to change this to V2, right? That's because I'm clicked on Shane's record, right? VarRecord's already populated. So now what do you need to do? You need to save and publish again. Don't skip this step, right? That's another common mistake. Okay, we'll publish this version. Okay, now, because we didn't change the email at all, I don't even have to generate the email again, right? We can just click on this link again. And by clicking on this link, it's going to open a new browser tab. Look, it still says V1. The URL doesn't control the version in any way, right? So it's just going to say that. So we're just going to do a refresh here. And after hitting refresh a couple of times, finally, look, there's the V2. That's why we put the V2 there, so we knew. We still have our ID. And more importantly, there's Shane, right? So we're populating VarRecord with the ID that we wanted. Yes, we are doing great. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to send them, right? They're on the home screen. This is not helping. So now we want to navigate. Now this is going to be a little trickier. So let's close this, right? We don't want to get confused. So what I want to do up here is I want to say, hey, after you set this variable, right? So that would be right here. What do I want to do? I then need to navigate. And what's the name of that screen? It's called Edit Employee. Navigate to Edit Employee. We'll close that, and that. Now, when I do this, we get an error. You hover, it's going to tell you, navigate is not permitted in OnStart. Use the start screen property instead. Okay, so this is where the controversial part starts, right? So what you're gonna need to do is you need to go here to settings. You're gonna go to upcoming features and retired. And so what's happened is Microsoft has disabled the ability to put navigate in app OnStart. Unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, to do deep linking right today, right, as of today, still, the only way to do deep linking correctly is to go ahead and go here and turn this on. Okay, so we're going to turn it on. Okay. Now, if you're thinking, but Shane, why didn't I do it, another way? So Microsoft has thoughts of how they're going to change it. Like if you go look on app and there is now a start screen. So you're like, hey, I could do all this in start screen, not have the error. You can, but in start screen, you can't set a variable. And so if you're all of a sudden trying to set variables here and then have the start screen do the navigation, it can work, but it can also create what we call race conditions where one's trying to get done before the other, and it can cause confusion. There's other little clever things you could possibly do. I don't like clever. I like things that work consistently. So as of today, I am still encouraging people to turn off that feature for deep linking apps and write the code this way. If you want to do it another way, well, watch a different video. No. You definitely can find other ways, but this, as far as I'm concerned. Now, at some point they will change it, and my opinion on this will change. But, as I stand here on October 19th, 2023, this is still the right answer to me. And I don't think they're going to change my right answer for a way to come. So if they ever do, I'll leave a comment. I'll pin a comment that points you to a new video, changes how to do it. But as of today, do it this way. Okay. But now that we've got this, now what should happen is if we click on go over here, we're going to change this to V3 and we're going to publish again. Now what should happen is when they click on that link, it should not only load all that information, but it should also grab and send them to the edit employee screen and load up Shane, which is what we want, right? We'll be almost done. So go back over here, Because we haven't changed the email, we can just click on the same link again. So let's just click there, right? V2 loads. So I will hit refresh until, I'll come back in a sec. Da-da! Right? Now, because V3 is here, we don't even get to see any of that because it literally just takes me here, right? Like I'll click it this time without editing, right? So just click the button and it just drops you here and takes you straight to me. Yes. Now, you probably don't want to hard code it to me. I get that. I mean, maybe you want to hard code it to me. I think you should, but if you don't, let's go fix that now, right? Now that everything works and we started with the easiest path possible. So let's go back over here. So now instead of sending them always to me, let's send them to whatever person they're on. So like if we're on Chewy's record, how are we going to do that? Well, we know that this portion right here is what is sending them to me, right? But we want that to become dynamic. So let's delete that out. And now what we're going to do is we're going to have to double quote, ampersand, and then double quote, right? So where this ampersand is where you need to dynamically put in the ID. Now, the easiest way I think to probably do it in this case would then just be say VarRecord dot, and in case for me, right, because my primary column is called employees videos, that's what I would put. And then we throw an ampersand after it and we're set, right? If you're doing SharePoint, it'd be VarRecord.id, SQL, VarRecord. Whatever you've done. If you're Dataverse, it is your primary key column. And let's just go look at that for a second, right? I keep telling you mine's employees video, but how do I know if I don't know? All right, click on data and then say edit your data here. Nope, you know what? This screen's not going to show us efficiently. So let's X out of here. Let's go over here. Let's just open a new tab. Go find your Dataverse table. And you could go straight to the solution, right? Mine's in the solution, but yours might not be. So I wanted you to see this. And so we'll find employees Dataverse, right? That's the table we've been using. Click on that. Click on columns. And what you're looking for is what column is called the unique identifier, right? This is your primary key. This is the column that we care about in all this. And so that's where I can see that mine is named employees video. And then that is that CR662 thing that we talked about earlier. Okay. So this is how you would find yours in Dataverse if you're struggling. Back over here. So now what we should see, right? Because we've edited all this. So now we're going to need to send a new email because we want to get the new email. Maybe we'll go up here and we'll say deep link for, and then we could do this, right? Ampersand VarRecord dot first name. Okay. Make our email a little bit different. Cool. Okay. Let's save and publish again. Now, I guess before I save and publish, let's follow my pattern. Let's be a good boy, right? Go back here to V4. Now, what we're really headed towards though, is we're going to be able, as soon as we're done, right? We're going to delete these. Let's just be careful. Let's not delete anything yet. All right. So there's publishing. Now that it's published, we will say play and we will go in here. We'll go check out Chewy's record. And then now we're going to click on the email icon. Here's the email I got. You can see deep link for Chewy. And if we look in here, right, we notice the numbers are different from employee ID. I don't know, right? We'll say click here, opens up a new browser tab, straight to Chewy. There you go. We have created a deep link. At this point, you've got all the pieces of the puzzle. Now look, it's saying refresh. Why did it work? Right? Because all we changed was this button. And so we clicked on that. So it doesn't matter, right? But if we refresh, it's just going to take us right back to Chewy. So no big deal, right? Allow again. And any person we want. So, if we hit the back arrow here and we go to Jennifer, send the email. There you go. Deep link for Jennifer. Click here. There's Jennifer's record. Perfect. Okay. So deep linking is very cool. I know. Oh yeah. And don't forget, if you just want to download this whole working app, right? It's a Dataverse solution. So you'll just be able to download it. It would have the tables, the app, it would all be functional. You just be able to plug it into your environment. You can do that just right over there at training.poweraapps91.com also. Things that you might be thinking about for changing in the app. So right now we know that I am sending the email always to the logged in users. I'm basically sending a link to myself. You could change that, right? So if you wanted to have a place for them, a text input for them to type in the email address, or if you want to go look up their manager, right? Like that portion just wants the email address you want to send there. It doesn't care if you get it with a function, a lookup, an input, a drop down, however you want to get it, grab that. Also, another question I got from one of my office hour students this week, right? So he wanted to do all this, but he's like, hey, I see the email. I've seen that video from 4 years ago, but now, he wants to use this with Power Automate, right? No big deal. Now that you understand that this URL does what you want to do, you're in business. So I could go stick that URL in Power Automate. that would work, right? So he could write a flow that says every time an item gets added to SharePoint, send an email to someone, right? And he would just go into the HTML body of the Outlook action. He would put all this in there. And then when we're doing VarRecord employee video, he would do dynamic content, the ID from when the item was created. Boom, he's got the same thing. If he wanted to build a deep link inside of Power BI, same type of concept, right? Now we'd have this URL. We just need to take this URL, concatenate their ID, and make that a clickable link in Power BI. Boom, deep linking from Power BI. This URL just needs to be what this URL needs to be. It doesn't matter how you get there. It could be hard-coded. It could be in a Teams message, an email, and sent by carrier pigeons. So much you can do once you understand these mechanics. So thoughts, questions, comments, leave them below. I'm all ears, right? This video, when I remake it in 4 years again from now, it'll probably be totally different. But those comments help me do that, right? Also, if you enjoy this style, right, check out our training classes. I got some live training classes coming up, training.poweraapps911.com. Love to see you come hang out with me for 5 days and do some back and forth and learn all this together. All right. And with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day.